Weldy, and this is Religious Recovery Live. I'm going to check here to make sure I'm in frame instead of having my head cut off or some kind of craziness like that, and then we'll get started in just a moment. The way that these live videos work on Facebook, it's kind of, it takes a little bit for people to start tuning into the live videos, so it's always good to start with, give a little time, give a minute or two at least before actually getting into the meat of the conversation. Let me see here. I am not seeing... Oh, there we go. There I am. I'm a handsome young man. All right. I will say, so the way that this is going to work, I will, as we keep going on through here, if you have comments, the thing that I'm going to read is actually pretty short. So if you have any comments, please feel free to ask your questions, make your comments right here, and I will do my best to kind of listen to them, see if I can find out what it is that you want to say, and I'll respond back to you. If you're not watching this live, if you're watching another video later, then just leave your comments underneath. You can leave your comments inside of the video, or if you're watching this on YouTube, leave your comments under the YouTube video, and myself or Wayne would love to get to you. So who are we? Who are we exactly? Who am I? Who is Wayne Holmes? So Religious Recovery is an organization that we're kind of like a 12-step program. We have 12-step programs to help people recover from alcoholism. We have 12-step programs to help people recover from pretty much any issue that we have. Religious Recovery is a 12-step program for people who have been hurt by religion. It's not any religion specifically. Now, since we're in America, and specifically we're keyed in the Midwest, so there's a lot of Christians that have been hurt by Christians, and people that no longer call themselves Christians, or people that still call themselves Christians, but they're not the same type of Christians that they used to be. That's who I am. I'm somebody who, I'll still call myself a Christian, but I'm not the same person that I was 5 years ago. Heck, I'm not even the same person that I was a year ago. And it's good. It's good because we know that there's so many people that religion has hurt. But at the same time, we're not anti-religious. We're not against religion. There's many beautiful things inside of religion, and we don't want to say, hey, you can't do that. We love religion. I still call myself a Christian, but I also see value in so many other bigger things. So we're not against religion. We just know that we want to be a support group to people who have been hurt by religion. My name is John Weldy. I'm a part of Religious Recovery Indianapolis chapter. We are mostly based in Indiana and Ohio. Wayne Holmes, the author of this wonderful, wonderful book, Every Path Leads Home. It could be Every Path Leads to Holmes. What do you think about that, Wayne? Wayne Holmes, our founder and the author of this book, is from Cincinnati. I'm looking to see if Wayne's watching right now. He's from Cincinnati, and he has a group there. There's 3 or 4 groups that we have around the Midwest, and if you're interested in being a part of one of these groups, a religious recovery group, then please just let us know in the comments or send us a message on our Facebook page, and we will let you know how you can connect like that. Okay, so tonight the chapter I'm going to read, this is chapter 2. It's called Religious or Spiritual. Last week I read the introduction. I love this book, and this is a big reason that I love this book because it's so very thin. I love reading, I love ideas, but at the same time I love being able to get through and finish something. And I have some 500, 800,000 page tomes on my bookshelf, and I love starting to read them, but I don't finish them. This book I finished very quickly. It's a wonderful, wonderful read that Wayne has written. So chapter 2 is called Religious or Spiritual, and it starts with a quote. The essence of religion, fear God and obey God. The essence of spirituality, love the divine and become divine-like. I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. I've heard that statement expressed by people in different places and situations. What do they mean? Some people use the expression to pacify. For some, the term spiritual encompasses a belief in a higher being called God for most in the Western world. However, they may also be open to other concepts. Religious or spiritual, what does it mean? Following is a sense of what I think people mean when they say to me, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. Religious. I go to religious gatherings, say prayers, listen to music, concentrate on the talk, donate money, but I'm empty inside. Spiritual. I don't attend religious gatherings. My parents made me when I was a child, but I'm not attending now. Still, I talk to God. I pray in my own way. But I feel there must be more. Even though I don't attend religious gatherings, I'm a good person. I know there's more to life than day-to-day existence, and someday, probably after I retire, I'll work on the spiritual aspect of my life. Those two definitions are scarcely accurate, but let's begin here. Fed up with religious groups and their rituals, knowing there must be more, but unable or unwilling to discover what, this loosely defines what it means to be spiritual, but not religious. Looking for more. The heart hungers for a meaningful existence. Why am I here? And what is my purpose? Are questions we ask in the stillness of life. At times of great loss, but also at times of great gain, when everything seems to be working. Even in victory and accomplishment, the question of meaning and purpose surfaces like a bobber on a fishing line. When traditional religious gatherings aren't enough. Many people, in fact most people, have found at one time or another the answers they seek through mainstream religions, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Islam, or Christianity, to name a few. But there are those who no longer feel connected with their birth religion. They seek a deeper understanding. Often this search was created because their birth religion did not answer their questions, and the questions wouldn't go away. This sense of being spiritual no man's land may have been created through a disagreement with a leader of the religious group. They may have come into conflict with a doctrine. Whatever the reason, the religious assembly disappointed them. Circumstances prohibited further participation, and they felt a sense of having been cast adrift. Now what? What would it be like to enter the world without a birth religion? Even people who were born with parents who claimed to be atheists or agnostics are still influenced by the national religion. America is considered a Christocentric society. Our supreme being we have named God, and his son Jesus. That is not to say that America is solely Christian. America has become more and more to resemble a Joseph's coat of many colors, an increasing number of religious traditions living for the most part in harmony. If we were born in a different nation, our birth religion might be Hinduism, Islam, or any number of religions, some well known and others more obscure. If we could choose the religion we wanted to be born with, what would we choose? Which one is right? Which one will get us to where we want to go? Heaven, nirvana, enlightenment. Which will bring us the greatest peace in daily life? Which is the most rewarding, the most fulfilling? Too complicated. In lieu of all these questions, some have discarded religious belief. The uncertainty of knowing and the effort to discover leave many deciding not to decide. Let the theologians figure it out. I have better things to do. They depart ways with organized religion, with its moral confines and dictates of man-made rules, but even those who shake the dust of organized religion from their feet leave with a sense of, there must be more. Later, when asked about their religious heritage, the conversation often goes something like this. What church, temple, synagogue, or mosque you go to? I grew up as a blank, but I haven't been going for a while. Oh? Yeah, I know I should, but I'm just too busy. Do you consider yourself a religious person? Well, not really religious, but I am spiritual. There's that phrase again. I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. They may go on to discuss how they try to live a good life, follow a set of rules such as the 10 Commandments, are kind to strangers, and so on. Is that what they mean by being spiritual? Knowing a moral code and doing their best to live within its boundaries? For some, however, the word spiritual has come to mean more than living by a set of laws. It means connecting with a higher power, living according to the promptings of an inner voice, being open to other forms of religion, and understanding that every path leads home. For them, religion can be useful but also dangerous. They carry that understanding into their new spirituality as well. Where do they meet? Jesus, Buddha, and other spiritual leaders were not pastors of religious assemblies. The world was their congregation, nature their choir, and shepherds, tax collectors, and prostitutes their flock. They spoke to those who would listen, never demanding an audience, but never turning one away. The New World religious gatherings often begin in the same way. One gathering I attended shared space with a business that taught pole dancing. During the week, students learned how to dance on stripper poles, and on Sunday, people met to draw close to their higher power. 2 other gatherings I have attended met in a home that tripled as 2 churches and a ministry office. Another religious gathering I visited met in a room rented from a moving company. I've also attended and visited other groups that met in more traditional religious buildings, some more elaborate than others. What do the spiritual gatherings look like? The gatherings, referring to the members and not the buildings, look like plumbers, garbage men, civil servants, teachers, businessmen and women, housewives and house husbands, students, normal everyday people, but also the not-so-ordinary, prostitutes, tax evaders, criminals, mentally challenged individuals. The emotional makeup of these gatherings varies. A search for a deeper spirituality draws the crowd, usually by word of mouth. No evangelistic knocking on doors, no "this is the way, walk ye in it" speeches, no talk of hell and damnation. Their doors open to all who come with open minds and hearts that yearn for healing. Okay, I'm sitting on my foot and I'm hurting myself, so I'm going to adjust here. Hang on a second. This is live, folks. This is live, y'all. Which gathering is right for me? The gathering that is right for you is the one that works for you. The following are summaries of my experiences of several gatherings I've visited and have loosely classified as spiritual as opposed to religious. The list is not complete, and it doesn't include gatherings I've attended in traditional churches, except for 2, which have at times provided spiritual experiences. The gatherings I've described here, however, are, generally speaking, open to all religions and a variety of lifestyles. I carried on this journey to my own tradition as a fundamentalist Christian minister. Spiritual gathering number 1. The first gathering I attended I could only describe as, according to my fundamentalist beliefs, weird. What I knew as a sermon was called a talk. What I understood as a prayer became affirmations. What I had called contemplation, a time of quiet reflection, became meditation, and frequently the meditation involved the playing of a crystal bowl. I haven't personally experienced speaking in tongues, but I've heard others do it. In my new religious group, during the crystal bowl meditation, the person playing the bowl went into a trance-like state and chanted in a language that, she explained, was similar to Tibetan. I repeat, weird was the word that described it for me, and what I understood to be prophecy or a word from the Holy Spirit was conveyed as a psychic reading, a message from the divine. One aspect of the service that didn't resonate strongly with me, considering my conservative roots, was the healing circle. Near the end of the service, we stood, joined hands, and after some opening comments about what we were about to do, spoke the names of loved ones, placing them into the center of the circle. A closing prayer offered the names up to the divine. We squeezed hands before returning to our seats. Though my traditional Christian beliefs included divine healing, the idea of a healing circle was something I experienced only on occasion. Spiritual gathering 2. A different religious assembly I visited opened the service in a manner more in tune with my birth religion. Songbooks had been placed on our seats, and we began by singing hymns. Often the words differed from the ones I was accustomed to because they had been changed to fit a more open view of life. The rest of the service followed a similar format: sermon or talk, prayers, offering, and announcements. The service ended, however, with psychic messages. The difference this time was that the psychics were mediums delivering messages from the departed. That was something I had only seen on television, not experienced firsthand. Feeling a bit uncomfortable, I hoped no one had a message for me. Since no one close to me had died recently, I probably had nothing to fear. In the first religious gathering I described, messages seemed to be given to specific individuals. At this second gathering, the psychics began with the question, did somebody lose a mother recently? Or who connects with the names Susan or Sherry? Spiritual gathering number 3. The next gathering I attended proved to be a balance of my birth religion and religious gathering number 1. The service began with the ringing of a small Tibetan singing bowl, followed by a reading from a book of daily devotions. Once again, the sermon was called the talk, but in the case of this assembly, it was delivered by a different member of the flock each week, or by a guest speaker. The talks varied greatly due to the different religious backgrounds. The unspoken rule was to accept what resonated with you and reject anything that didn't. A tolerant, accepting, but also questioning mind was important because the things we believe today might be different from the things we believe in the future. Most weeks the talk was followed by a group discussion and then a time of silence lasting for about 10 minutes. A time to express gratitude came next, followed by individual prayer requests, a summation prayer, and a group prayer for God's protection. The service concluded with a message given to each person. These messages were short pieces of insight to help or encourage the individual on her or his spiritual journey. Spiritual gathering 4. The fourth gathering I encountered had stronger roots in Christianity. Unlike the first three, which rarely used or quoted Scripture, the concept of this religious group was to gain a spiritual understanding of the Bible. Instead of taking the Bible literally, they believe in a metaphysical or spiritual interpretation. Members could hold on to their Christian beliefs, yet also go beyond the surface to new realms of spirituality that produces a relationship with the divine based on personal experience rather than formal traditions. The format of the service was similar to Spiritual Gathering 3. Spiritual Gathering 5. Unity gatherings fall within the boundary of spiritual versus religious. Though the unity services, the ones I visited, fall into a more accustomed format, music, a sermon or talk, and traditional types of prayer, their core beliefs and practices come from a variety of world religions and were my first introduction to new ways of thinking. During their messages and talks, I enjoyed the inclusion of advice and insight from other world religions. A book they seem to pull a lot of wisdom from is A Course in Miracles, and the book seems to be almost as important to them as the Bible or the Quran, or any book that claims divine inspiration. According to the Unity website, unity.org, their basic teachings may be summed up in 5 points. Number 1, God is the source and creator of all. There is no other enduring power. God is good and present everywhere. 2, we are spiritual beings created in God's image. The Spirit of God lives within each person. Therefore, all people are inherently good. 3, we create our life experiences through our ways of thinking. 4, there is power in affirmative prayer, which we believe increases our connection to God. 5, knowledge of these spiritual principles is not enough. We must live them. Each Sunday, the service concluded by joining hands and singing "Let There Be Peace on Earth," an emotional reminder that peace must begin with individuals and then spread to nations. Spiritual Gathering 6. The Quaker tradition was built upon the practices of silence, often called expectant waiting. Though more Christian-based than some of the religious gatherings I've mentioned, it deserves inclusion because of its emphasis on direct communication with the divine, which is defined by Quakers as Christ and/or God. According to one website, quakerinfo.org, 2 fundamental beliefs are: 1, a belief in the possibility of direct, unmediated communication with the divine, historically expressed by George Fox in the statement, "Christ is come to teach his people himself," and 2, a commitment to living lives that outwardly attest to this inward experience. I am familiar with 3 types of Quaker services. The unprogrammed Quaker meetings entail silence. The first person to enter the sanctuary does so in silence, and all who follow enter in the same attitude of expectant waiting to hear from the divine. Meditation and prayer are practiced. In some meetings, it is appropriate to speak if and when the individual believes he or she has a word from God to share. Ideally, it is given as received without directing it to an individual and without additional explanation. This appears to be a form of psychic message or prophecy. The programmed meetings are led by a minister and follow a traditional format with a message or sermon. The meetings I attended fell into a category 3 and were a hybrid of both, allowing for time to talk followed by time of silence. Like the Unity churches, Quakers are open-minded and service-oriented. Spiritual Gathering 7. The 12-step religious gatherings. Programs such as Alcoholics Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, Al-Anon, and others specifically stay away from religious and political entanglements. But in the meetings I have attended, I found plenty of spirituality. Their Bible, Torah, or Quran is the big book. Their commandments are the 12 steps. Their ministers, priests, and rabbis are the individual members of the group. The atmosphere exudes love, acceptance, and understanding. Judgments are prohibited. Their aim is healing. They teach and lead by positive and negative examples. Newcomers are asked to give only their first names and are greeted warmly by everyone present. No dues or fees are collected. Contributions are voluntary. Anonymity is of the utmost importance to all members. Crosstalk is discouraged. The only requirement for attendance is that all members share a common illness: alcohol abuse, drug abuse, overeating, and so forth. Rites of progression are celebrated by all those present. Within the 12 steps, the phrase "God as we understood him" appears twice. Another phrase is mentioned in step 2, "a power greater than ourselves." The wording is intentional to make the 12-step program available to all religious beliefs and to those with no belief in religion. In step 11, the concept of prayer and meditation is encouraged. I'm glad the 12-step program isn't a religion. No outside doctrines have been imposed as to how we should meditate or how we should meditate, or to whom specifically we should pray. Our religious assemblies could learn from this program. Perhaps we should drop the church, mosque, or synagogue label and stick with gatherings or programs. Another characteristic of 12-step groups I find refreshing is their avoidance of the words should and ought. One member does not instruct another on what he or she should do. Instead, they share their personal experiences. They may say, I had a similar situation and this is what helped me. Nothing's perfect. In experiencing the different types of spiritual gatherings, I worked hard to keep an open mind. I tried different meetings, returned to the ones I enjoyed most, and grew accustomed to the new forms. Before long, I embraced them. Once, when I attended one of my world religion gatherings, I thought the lady speaker said, don't let anyone shit on you. Later that day, I asked my wife about it. No, that's not what she said. She said, don't let anyone should on you. In essence, don't let anyone tell you what you should or shouldn't do. Two people may have walked a similar path, but not the exact same one. But the one who says, this is what worked for me, maybe it will work for you, gives the listener freedom to decide without pressure or guilt. One of my favorite phrases is, take what you like and leave the rest. Perfect. The struggle to be right is avoided, which frees us to be wrong. But right and wrong prove to be elusive. What seems wrong for one person might be the right thing for another. Often it depends on a person's understanding and frame of reference. There's also the language barrier to consider. Even when we think we speak the same language, we don't. Words have different shades of meaning, and it can often cause misunderstandings. Communication also depends on body language, voice inflection, and emotions. When we take what we like and leave the rest, it frees us to come back at a later time to the things we've left. Maybe we left them because we didn't understand what was meant. Later the recognition comes and we are grateful. The information has not been pounded into our heads. Instead, the seeds were planted with tenderness, watered with patience, and allowed to grow with rays of love. Some religious people like to preach. They like to tell us how to live, what to think, how to behave, yet the world is full of religions and no two are alike. I prefer to have my leaders, guides, teachers, and mentors a little less assertive and a lot more gracious. No two situations are alike. Yes, your child and my child may both be alcoholics or drug addicts or any number of things, but the way you respond may not be appropriate for me or my child. At their best, spiritual leaders are messengers. Where they get their message, the spirit in which they receive it, and how they deliver it makes all the difference in how it's received. When the message comes to them, they must first apply it to their own lives before passing it on to others. If the messenger speaks of acceptance and love, and then refuses to accept with love and an open mind and heart the validity of different points of view, I question whether he understood his own message. In 12-step meetings, the leaders are the individual members of the group, each taking turns leading and sharing. Some who have worked the program longer may have more insight. Those who are new to the program may have more questions and struggles than insights. But as one gives to the other, both heal. Wouldn't it be nice if spirituality worked this same way? I receive a message from the divine and I apply it to my life first before sharing it with others. When I sense it's time to share with another, I carefully word my story to avoid shoulding on anyone. I've tried to keep these descriptions free from bias, but the truth is I am biased. And as you may have gathered from reading the foregoing, I do have favorite styles. Because I am most familiar with Christianity, this list does not take into consideration other world religions, and is therefore only a sampling of different practices. Even though I have been at times disappointed in religion, I still hold that religion, with a small r, provides many people a legitimate path to the divine. Most religions, if not all, started with good intentions, spiritual leadership, and divinely appointed purpose. Some may have lost their way, at least to some degree. None is perfect. Wisdom and intuition are needed to find a religious institution that meets the majority of your needs. Remember, the religious gathering that is right for you is the one that works for you, and over time that may change. Before leaving this discussion, however, let's look at some general classifications and some newer forms of worship. Actually, let's not. Let's do that next week. So next week's chapter is called Religious Gathering Leadership Types, and we'll get to that next Wednesday at 8 p.m. So this chapter really reminded me of some things on my journey. I grew up very conservative Baptist, fundamentalist church, and throughout my life I've gone to just about every single iteration of the evangelical Christian church. And it was only recently, only in about the past year and a half, that I've really started exploring other world religions. I like Wayne's Wayne's title for his book, Every Path Leads Home. For me personally, and this is not anything contradicting Wayne or the organization, for me personally, I believe that the divine will follow you down any path you go to. There may be wrong paths. It's okay if there's a wrong path, but I believe that the divine is good, the divine is loving, and will follow you down any path that you go down, even if it's the wrong path. Now, we know that there are obviously wrong paths. There are obviously bad paths to go down, and there are bad paths religiously and spiritually to go down. But any path you go down, I believe that the divine is good and will follow you down that path. So I've seen many different things just in the past year and a half. I have friends who are Muslim. I have friends who are Sikh. The Sikhs, I love the Sikhs. The Sikhs have such a heart for reaching out to people and bringing them in. You can go, if you've never been to a Sikh Gurdwara, I think I pronounced that correctly. It's a wonderful, lovely place to go. The Sikhs' holy book is all, in Christianity we would call it psalms, and it's all sung. And so their whole service is all sung all the way throughout. And it tends to be very long, and there's always food available there. You can go into a Sikh Gurdwara anytime that you want and get a meal. It's amazing. That is central to who they are. I've seen... I've been in temples, in Jewish temples. I've been in mosques. I have Muslim friends. I have friends who are Unitarian Universalist. I have friends, oh boy, I can't even remember, I've got pagan friends. I've been to a pagan festival, and me being a small town fundamentalist Baptist boy, grown and raised, that was a stretch for me, going to a pagan convention. But it was very enlightening, and people are lovely all around. Oh, so I don't want to take too much of this with my own thoughts, but if you've got any questions, please feel free to stick them down in the comments. Wayne or I will get to your questions. If you want to be able to join a religious recovery group, you can do that in Indiana. We have groups in Indiana and Ohio, or we're also starting some groups that are virtual groups. You can call in to the group, so it doesn't really matter exactly where you live, but there's just a time when you call in. It's like a 12-step program for people who have been hurt by religion. I've got a couple announcements. There's a newsletter that you can join. This is the Religious Recovery newsletter. If you go to religiousrecovery.org, or if you put something in the comments, you can sign up for the newsletter and get all of these. Wayne has another book. There's another Religious Recovery book that's kind of like a daily. In Christianity, we would call it a devotional. I don't remember the title that Wayne uses for it, but like you can read a little bit of it daily, and it helps you walk down your path. And he puts those in the weekly newsletter also. We have a group starting up shortly, starting on Tuesday, July 25th, that is going to be a virtual group. If you're interested in that virtual religious recovery group, please please either send us a message on the Facebook page or put your information in the comments. And Wayne's book, Every Path Leads Home, that I was just reading from, is currently on sale at Amazon. You can get it for just under $6 plus $3.99 shipping, so it's about $10. It's a lovely, wonderful book. I hope you guys all get it. So if there are any other questions, just leave them for us, and I will take my leave of you right now, and thank you guys for listening, and see you next week.